Seches Gittin Daf Zayin begins with Agarata. The first half of the daf is Agarata, discussing the proper midos that a person should not put too much fear into his family, and then other midos that a person should display. Then it'll get into drushes of some other psukim. And then the second half of the daf will discuss the borders of Eretz Yisrael, which were indicated in the Mishnah. So let's begin. The Marcos Rabbi Avo says that a person should never put too much fear into his family. He should not scare them, because there was a great person that put too much fear into his family, and they made him eat something big. Something big over here, the Gemara is a euphemism for something forbidden. And who is this? So the Gemara says it was Chanina ben Gamliel. So the Gemara says, is it possible that they really made him eat something forbidden? Don't we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure that even the animal of Talmud Chacham doesn't eat something forbidden, which is a story brought in the beginning of Mesechus Chulin with the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yoyer, that he would not eat Tevel. Certainly it couldn't be that Tzaddik himself would eat something like that, even if he did violate this rule and made too much fear in his household. So the Gemara says, no, he didn't actually eat it, but he almost ate it. They tried to make him eat something which was forbidden. What was that? It was a limb of a live animal. Rashi explains that they had been afraid that he would be angry that they didn't have the meal fully prepared and they had lost a limb, and therefore they cut off a limb of a live animal to roast so that they could have it ready for him. Now the Gemara says that Mar Ukva sent a message to Rav Elazar that there are people in his town who are tormenting him, and he has a solution. He's able to rat them out to the government because they're doing something illegal, and he could report them. So he responded to him with a letter quoting psukim, and he made lines on the letter. This relates to what the Gemara had said at the end of the last daf, that if you're going to write a pasuk 2 or 3 words, you have to make lines. Just like I say for Torah, you have to have lines on a letter. If you're quoting psukim, you have to have lines as well. And the pasuk that he quoted was from Tehillim. It says, "Amarti eshma derachai mechatay b'lshoni eshma lefi machzon ba'od rasha lenegdi." Even though there's a wicked person across from me who's tormenting me, I'm still going to be machzon lefi machzon. I'm going to close my mouth. So he sent back to him. He said, but they're torturing me very greatly. It's causing me a lot of agony and masnefesh. I don't think I can stand it any longer. So he said, he sent back another pasuk from Tehillim, Doim Lashem Hischila Loi. Be quiet and leave it up to Hashem, and He will take care of it. He will make them fall for you. And then he continued, Hashkim Ahar V'Leim LeBeis Medrash. Go early and stay late in the Beis Medrash, V'Hein Kolon Me'alein, and then they will dissipate on their own. As soon as he said that, they were placed in a kolar. The Gemara uses the name Geniva over here. They were placed in a collar, which is a manner of imprisoning them so that they are waiting to be killed by the Malchus for something that they had done. Now the Gemara says the message was sent to Mar Ukva. How do we know that songs are forbidden to sing at a simcha, at the party, which we had seen in the end of Mesechus Saita, that from the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, they made a ban on music and meals. So he sent them a pasuk as a response as well. And again, he made lines, and that's why this is brought here. The pasuk comes from Hosea. It says, Al tismach Yisrael el gil. Ka'amim, don't be rejoicing at a party like the nations do. So the Gemara asks, why don't you send them a different one? There's a pasuk in Yeshayahu that says, Bashir lo yishtu yayin, yeh masheichel l'shaisav. They shouldn't have music when they're drinking wine, and the beer should be bitter to those who drink it. So the Gemara says, if he would have sent that, you would think that means making music with a kli, with an instrument. Here we're talking about singing. And you would have thought that that's permitted. The instrument is forbidden, and singing is permitted. Here it's saying that even singing is forbidden. Now, said Rav Huna bar Nasan to Rav Ashi, what is the meaning of the pasuk in Yehoshua, which lists 3 cities in Eretz Yisrael, and it says, Vikina v'dimayna v'ad ada. So he said, simple pshat, these are cities in Eretz Yisrael. So he said, okay, I know there's cities in Eretz Yisrael. He was obviously asking for a drush. So the Gemara says, Rav Gavia from Argiza said a drush on it, and he said that kina, demona, and adada means if somebody has kina on chaver, that means that he's upset at him for a valid reason. But viduma, but he is silent, lashon vidoimim. So then adada shechin ade ad, he who abides forever, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is going to do judgment for him. So he said, you think you can make drushes out of every name, so then what are you going to do with the pasuk that's a few psukim later that says v'tziklog umadmana v'santzana, more names. So he said if Rav Gavia from Ragiz would be here, I'm sure he would say a drush on that as well. And Rav Acha from Bei Chazal said I could say a drush on it. Tziklog is somebody who is tzakas legima, that he has pain because of food from his friend, meaning that his friend is taking his food away. He's causing him a lack of being able to eat. Vidaimim, and that is madmana, is that he's silent. Vidaimim. So santzana is he who abides in their sneh, that is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, who appeared as it were in the burning bush, is going to do a judgment for him on his behalf. Now the more brings another incident where it says that Reish Galusa asked Rav Huna, how do we know that it's forbidden to have kalil as a special crown that was put on chasanim since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? How do we know that that's forbidden? And there's also a Gemara at the end of Maseches Saita, which we have seen recently. So the Gemara says that he responded to Rav Huna answer, and he said it's not an Esidar. I'm not going to find the pasuk for it. It's an Esidar Rabbanon. I have a Mishnah that says in the end of Maseches Saita, the last stop, it says from the time that the troops of Aspasinus of Vespasian came to surround Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim, they made this rule that the crowns of the Chasanim should not be there, and the Irus, which is a type of musical instrument, it sounds like a bell, was not played at weddings either. Then Rav Huna got up to use the restroom, and Rav Chizda, who was his Talmud, was sitting there, and he said, I'm going to tell you there is a pasuk for it. Now, Rav Chizda would not have spoken up had Rav Chizda been there, because he would not contradict his Rebbe in front of him. However, once Rav Huna left, Rav Chizda said, I'm going to tell you there is a pasuk in Yechazkel. It says, as follows. It says, Kayam Hashem Lekim, Hasar HaMetz Nefes, V'harim HaTorah, Zois Lo Zois, Hashafala, Hagbev Hagavoya Hashpil. So what does this pasuk mean? So it says, Hasir ha-mitz nefes v'harm ha-Torah. Remove the mitznefes, that's the hat that was worn by the Kohen Gadol, and remove the crown. So what does the crown and Torah, what does crown and mitznefes have to do with each other? They're not the same thing. Mitznefes was worn by the Kohen Gadol, crown was worn by the king. So what this means is to link the two. When the Kohen Gadol is wearing his mitznefes, he could have a crown on the head of the chasanim, and that's the clear that he was asking about. But once the mitznefes is removed from the Kohen Gadol, that is by the Chorban, you should not have a crown on the head of the chasanim any longer. Now Rav Huna came back and he heard this, and heard what they were saying, and he said, Helikim, an expression of exclamation of Shua, he said, no, it's midrabanan. There is no pasuk for it. But Chizda is your name, and Chazdoyin are your words, meaning he was praising him that he said a very good Torah from this pasuk. Now the Gemara has more to say about this pasuk. So Ravina found Mar bar Rav Ashi, who was growing a kalila for his daughter, that this crown is made out of flowers. He was growing those flowers. So he said, don't you hold of the pasuk of Hasar HaMetz Nefes v'harim ha-Torah? So he said, that's only for chasanim. I'm making a kala. The mitznefes was one on the head of the Kohen Gadol, who was a man. And similar to that is the Torah that's on the head of the Chassan, who's a man. But if you want to talk about the women, the Kala, there's nothing you can learn out of that pasuk. Now the Gemara asks, what does it mean, Zois Lei Zois? It said there, Zois Lei Zois, Hashafala Hagbei of Hagavai Hashpel. So Gemara says, Zois Lei Zois means as follows. The Malachim said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Zois, this is what you do for those who said, Nasim and Ishma on Har Sinai, this is their fate. So he said, no, Loi. Zois is for the people who are Mashpil, the Gavaya, and Magbia, the Shavel, those who uplift that which should be low, and depress and hold low that which should be high. And that's why they put an idol image in the Heichel. Now, Rav Avira said a drasha, sometimes he said a name of Ami, sometimes he said a name of Asi. What is the meaning of the pasuk in Nachum, which says, Kaimar Hashem, Im Shalemim v'chein rabim v'chein agaizu v'avar v'inisicha loy anech oid. What does this mean? So Im Shalemim, he says, means if you have exactly enough money, you don't have a lot, you don't have extra, the person sees that his parnasa is very concise, doesn't have an extra, so what should he do? He should give tzedakah. And if he gives tzedakah, then he'll have enough. Certainly, if he has more than he needs, he should certainly give tzedakah. Then it says, v'chein nagaizu. So v'chein nagaizu means, and then it should be like passing through the river. Meaning to say that, Brisa that Rabbi Shmuel brings, if you shave off, if you do geziza, nagaizu, if you shave off, then you'll be saved from Gehenim, and that's like passing through the river. What does that mean? So it means if you have two sheep that are passing through the river, one has already been shorn and one has not been shorn. Which one passes easier? Obviously, the one that has been shorn is not weighed down by all that wool, will pass easier. So if you give away some of your possessions, then you'll pass through this world much easier and get to Maba. Now, what is V'ini Sicha, which comes next? So the Gemara says that even somebody who's an ani, Ini Sicha, should do tzedakah, should give from whatever he can, and then le'en cha'od, he won't be poor any longer. He will not have the signs of poverty following that. The Gemara now moves on to discuss the borders of Eretz Yisrael as they're mentioned in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah said that Akko is the northern border of Eretz Yisrael, and Akko is already considered to be like Eretz Yisrael as far as the halacha of saying b'fanei nechtav, b'fanei nechem. So the Gemara asks, it seems to imply that Akko is the furthest north of Eretz Yisrael. The problem is that we have a brisa that indicates that Akko is actually on the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael, and that it is not the northernmost corner. It's in the eastern border, and there is something further north in Eretz Yisrael, and that's a place called Kziv. So let's see this brisa. So the brisa says that if somebody is walking from Akko to Kziv, and he has on his right side as he's walking, he has east. East of the road is Tameh, because that's Chutz La'aretz. It's the land of the nations, and therefore it has the halachos of being Chutz La'aretz. First of all, it's Tameh, like all Chutz La'aretz. You don't have to do Meiser from there. You don't have to worry about Shemitah. Now, if you know that the road turns off the border a little bit, as somebody explains to you here, the road moves westward off the border, and therefore what's on the right of the road is really Eretz Yisrael, so then you have to keep those halachos. But otherwise, you have to assume that everything to the right is Chutz La'aretz, and everything to the left, which is to the west, is Tahar. It's not Eretz Amim, it's Chayv and Meiser, it's Chayv and Shvius, unless you know that the road turns across the border, and then you would have Chutz La'aretz even on your left. So it clearly describes that somebody who's walking from Akko to Kziv has eastward on his right, westward on his left. That means that he's clearly heading north. And if he's heading north, he's still walking with Eretz Yisrael on his left. Eretz Yisrael is on his west. So obviously, Akko is on the eastern border, and he's walking north to Kziv. He's still within Eretz Yisrael. So actually telling me that Akko is the northern border. You see here that it's on the east and not even the furthest east. So Gemara answers that the main body of Eretz Yisrael, its northern tip is Akko, but then there's a little strip that continues north to get to Kziv, and that's the strip that we're referring to over here. So Gemara asks, why would the brisa give a siman for this little strip? It's such a small, insignificant piece of land that is it worth it for the brisa to be busy explaining to me how to identify it? So Gemara says, yes, it is, and I'll even show you that there are psukim who give an identification for a little piece of land. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Shoftim, which says, "Vayom Hine Chag Hashem b'Shilei miyom yemima, asher mitzvayna lebeiskal, mizracha Hashem shel Mesila, ha'el mebeiskal el Shechama, u'minegav el Levana." So you have here a whole description of where Shiloh is, and it says that Shiloh is to the north of Beiskel, it's to the south of Levina, and it's to the east of Mesila. And Mesila is a little strip of land, and it's identifying where it is in relation to all these things. And Papa explained that there's a strip of land that goes from Beiskel north to Shechma, and to the east of that is where Sheila is. The Gemara now moves on to discuss what happens if you have a get that's written in a ship. The Gemara is assuming that this ship is traveling in the rivers of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara's question is, a ship in the river, not touching the ground of Eretz Yisrael, does that count as being in Eretz Yisrael, and you don't have to say B'fanei Nachem, or does it count as Chutz La'aretz? So the Gemara has a contradiction between two brises. One says you have to say it, one says you don't. So the Gemara wants to compare it to a Machlokes of Yehuda and the Rabbanon about plants that are growing in a dirt, which is in a ship traveling in the waters of Eretz Yisrael. According to the Rabbanon, it has the halacha of Chutz La'aretz. It has the halacha of Eretz Yisrael, and it's chayiv in Meiser and Shemitah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it does not. Now, Rabbi Yehuda agrees if the bottom of the boat is scraping in the ground, it does, assuming that the boat is made out of cheres. But if it's floating,